So my parents started a business, but I have to run the day to day because my dad has to make money for the family. How do I turn this business up a couple of notches in profit when I hate the business?
You can, in the short run, do something for the love of your parents, but long term, you can't be in this business. So the reason to get up and fight every day is not because you love the business, it's because you love your family. And at some point, that's going to get too much. That's not going to be a good enough driving reason long term. And so you have to decide at what point is that, when do you bounce? Maybe you're already at the point. Maybe you can't do it anymore right now. Maybe you're already done. Or maybe you can give it 6 months or give it a year. But don't expect to love the business. Don't have the pressure on yourself to love the business. You're doing it because you love your parents. My mom used to be in politics, for example. And we were very heavily involved in helping and volunteering. So before election time, we'd be going door to door and canvassing people, right? Like, hey, would you like to talk to the candidate? Would you like to talk to the candidate? Right? Next. I mean, and they didn't know that we were, her kids. But there was a lot of work. We did garage sales. My parents always did so many garage sales that I had to help out with. My parents had a bunch of small little businesses, including rental properties that we had to go and clean every week. They had 3 cottages outside the city, about 3 hours north of the city, and we would drive every weekend because they would rent out the cottages for the weekend, and then we'd drive up on Sunday night and clean it up, and then go to the next cottage and go to the next cottage and the next cottage and then come home. And that was our weekend, every weekend. Did I like it? No. I did it for my parents. Now, if I'm here now, 40 years old, still cleaning up my cottages for my parents, I'm going to hate my life. So there is definitely an exit time that has to be put on this for you, where you feel, and it may not be enough for your parents. Like, it may lead to your parents being upset. It may lead to them feeling like you let them down. But at some point, you have to feel like I gave it what I had to give. The thing that will get you through that is the love for your parents. Zane wasn't happy initially with my answer, so let's see what Zane's got. Where's the resistance, Zane?
We don't have an answer for that but I want to know that if he continues to, if he hates the business, if he continues doing something he hates, will he eventually resent his parents for it? Because he'll blame them, like, the reason I'm doing this is because of you guys?
That's your choice. It's not your parents' fault. You're in charge. You can choose. Go back to the conversation about mercy versus, what did I say? Oh, justice. You said justice. I said mercy. Like, go watch. It's a choice. You can choose to resent your parents for forcing you to do this, or you can say, I love them. This is my gift, and I want to try to help them. And I don't want to see my dad struggle, and I want to try to help him get a business off the ground so he doesn't have to stay at that job, so he can do work that he loves. Like, we do stuff all the time. I do stuff all the time in my relationship to help Nina get something, even if I don't love it, because it helps her get somewhere, and that's the motivation. But you will at some point, and maybe at some point close, and maybe it's today, but you will at some point feel like you've given enough and you have to move on and do your own thing. This is not a long-term strategy, but choose love over resentment. I'm doing this because I love my parents. I choose not to resent them for forcing me to do this.
And then he's got a follow-up. I see. So I got to spend bare time strategizing and getting money coming in until I can make it profitable enough so my parents can take over.
If that's their dream, right? Like, imagine most parents, yes, they're adults, right? And you expect them to be able to have all the answers. But you realize when you become an adult that your parents are just trying to figure it out as they go too. Right? Like in a lot of relationships, you have to become the adult and stop expecting your parents to be the adult and do the right thing every time. So what I'd be asking myself, if this were me, I'd be asking myself, what is my parents' dream? If this was their dream, if my parents, if I knew that they wanted to start a business and it was their dream to have this company running, I don't know what Redemption or Charming Fox, I don't know what the business is, but if that's their dream, I would do as much as I could until I just couldn't give any more to try to help my parents get their dream. You know, like there's your parents, there's your siblings, there's your husband, wife, there's your kids, and maybe some super, super close friends who you would just sacrifice so much for to help them get their dream. Right? If this is their dream and you have the ability, but you don't have the desire, I would try to just give a little bit more. Because imagine you being 10 years later or 20 years later and you look back on this moment and you realize that they never got their dream and you could have done something to help them move along a little bit more. Will you regret it? And if it's a yes, then great, do something about it now. And if it's a no, it's like, no, like that would have killed me. I gave everything I could and I couldn't make it work either. Then live with it. Then you're fine. But if my parents came and said, this is my dream, man, I would do a lot. I would do a lot to try to help them. It doesn't mean that I'd stick with it for life, and maybe I couldn't get them across the finish line, but I would do a lot to try to help them get there.
Wow. He said, thanks, man. Very helpful. I'm definitely not doing as much as I can.
So just switch the distinction there from resentment to love. Like, this is their dream. My dad doesn't want to work this crappy job that he's at. He's just trying to make money for the family. I want him to be happy for the rest of his life. I know he would love being in this business. And maybe that gives you the strength to go 3 more months. And maybe inside those 3 months makes a difference. And maybe it doesn't, right? It doesn't guarantee that you're going to be able to save the business. But are you proud of the effort you put in to give your father or your parents the best shot at success? And if you can say, yes, I did my best, then you can live with it. And that may not be good enough for them, but at the end of the day, it's you being proud of yourself and living with yourself for your choices.